Have you seen these yet? Tom Steyer is betting big on Texas as we count down to Super Tuesday. Steyer is running commercials across this state. He just opened an office in Dallas a couple days ago as well. You know, Steyer polled well in Nevada, but he remains a long shot candidate, especially in Texas. So where does he see a path to victory? We talked to him from Las Vegas. Tom, thanks for the time.
Jason, it's great to be with you.
Texans are seeing your ads on TV right now. What is your last-minute polling in Texas telling you?
Look, what I'm seeing coming out of Nevada and going into South Carolina is that my campaign has a ton of momentum. I am putting together a coalition of Americans, of diverse Democrats, including black people, Latinos, Asian Americans, Native Americans, and white people. That's the kind of coalition that any Democrat's going to need both to secure the nomination, but also, most importantly, to beat Mr. Trump in November. So what people in Texas need to know is you can see from Nevada and going into South Carolina that I have the momentum coming into Super Tuesday to be a force and to pull together a party that can only win if it's together and not fractured. And that's what I'm doing.
And Tom, the last poll we saw here in Texas had you like at 3%. Are you seeing higher numbers than that in your own polling?
I think it's going to be, I think any one of those polls is going to have to take into account the results of Nevada and the results of South Carolina, because I think I've been spending my time, Jason, in the two diverse states as part of the primary process before Super Tuesday to show that I can have that momentum and can pull together that coalition. And that's what I've been doing.
Tom, for people who aren't as familiar with your candidacy, how do you differentiate yourselves from other Democrats?
I have spent the last 10 years, I started a business from scratch, Jason. Built it up over 27 years, multi-billion-dollar international business, walked away from it, took the giving pledge to give most of my money away to good causes while I'm alive. And for 10 years, I've been putting together coalitions of Americans to take on unchecked corporate power. We've beaten oil companies, we've beaten tobacco companies, we've beaten utilities, we've beaten drug companies, we've never lost. And so what I'm trying to do is go to Washington, D.C. and bring that same spirit as an outsider of beating the corporations who've bought our government and get back the government for the people so that, in fact, we can deliver the progressive promise of affordable health care as a right, of quality public education, including universal pre-K, of a living wage for every American, and of clean air and clean water. I'm the outsider who's beaten corporations for a decade and can do it in D.C.
Tom, I want to ask you one more question in our final moments here. You know, several candidates in the Nevada debate suggested that Democrats do not need a billionaire candidate. They were aiming that specifically at Mike Bloomberg, but they were saying that, you know, billionaire candidates are out of touch. You too are a billionaire. You talked about the business you started from scratch. What would you tell Texans who might wonder whether you really understand their struggles?
Well, let me say this, Jason. I'm an outsider. I've been putting together coalitions to fight corporations as an outsider successfully for 10 years. If you believe that corporations have bought the government in Washington, D.C., which I believe, and that it's broken, you have to ask yourself who's going to go in there and really fix it. Is it somebody from the outside who's talking about 12-year term limits for every senator or congressman? Or is it somebody from inside the Beltway who's a career politician who's claiming they're really going to reform Washington, D.C.? I'm telling you that the person you can trust is the person who has over a decade of showing that he'll take on the corporations and beat them, that in fact I've started a non-profit bank to support black people, Latinos, and women who are getting mistreated and discriminated against in the financial system, somebody who has a history of doing the right thing and succeeding. That's the person you can trust.
Tom, thanks for the time. We appreciate it. Good luck on Super Tuesday.
Thank you, Jason.